So Walt was the fourth of five kids he grew up in a small town in Chicago called Hermosa, and he was a very gifted and talented artist from a young age, and he knew this and his family knew this, but unfortunately his dad had owned a newspaper company when he was a young boy, so him and his brothers had to work countless hours, day and night, before and after school, serving newspapers with his dad to help the company stay afloat and everything, so this left no time for him and his brothers to do what they loved, especially Walt, which was drawing. So in high school, he had taken art classes, but for some reason he had wanted to drop out of high school, which they weren't sure why, but Walt wanted to drop out of high school and then join the military. So he tried dropping out and joining the military, but they sent him back because of his age. He was way too young, so he got sent back to Chicago. And then once he got back to Chicago, he decided that he was just going to end up furthering his career in art. So he did this. He went to night classes in Chicago at the Academy of Fine Arts, and he mastered his skill of drawing. And then a short few years later, at the age of 18, he got a job as a commercial illustrator. So after this, Walt, his brother, and his friends had decided that they wanted to start up some companies, some illustrating companies, some film companies, and some drawing companies. But every single time they tried to start up a company, they failed, and they didn't know what to do. And Walt knew that he didn't want to give up his dream of making something of himself. So him and his brother had made the executive decision to pick everything up and move to Hollywood. So this ended up being the best thing for Disney and Disney as a company, because as soon as they got to Hollywood, they ended up signing a contract with the Six Alice Companies for cartooning, which was a bigger cartooning company back in the day in Hollywood. So they signed that contract with them, and then they got a little bigger, so they opened up their own studio called the Disney Brothers Studio that they later renamed Walt Disney Company. And like I said, the company got a little bigger, so they hired some people, and they ended up hiring this cartoonist named Lillian Bounds, and Walt and Lillian had dated for a little while and then got married and started a family. Lillian had a baby girl named Diane, and then a few short years later, she had adopted a girl named Sharon. So in 1928, this is when Mickey was born, theoretically. Walt had, when he first moved to Hollywood, he had a pet mouse, and every time he was in his office, he'd kind of look at it and ponder him and think that he wanted to turn him into something like a character, so that's what he did. He turned him into an animated character, and later in May of 1928, he released Mickey into a short film, which was a really big hit and a lot of people really did like. So 1934 was the golden age for Disney and Disney's movies. This is when Walt had produced many of his well-known movies like Snow White, The Seven Dwarfs, and Pinocchio, like the movies we know today. And he was also the first ever person to produce a movie in 100% full color, which was a really big deal because it had never been done before, and he had done it. And then in the 1950s, Walt had knew that he wanted to expand the company even further than just the movies and the shows that he had. So he released to the public that he was going to buy some property in California and build Disneyland, which is what he did. So he bought the property and opened Disneyland, and it expanded like astronomically. The first day it had 20,000 guests, and then over the first year it had 3.6 million visitors from all over the world. So after amazing feedback and astronomical sales from Disneyland, in 1965, Walt had decided that he was going to buy another property. So he bought a property in Orlando, Florida, and released to everyone that he was going to start expanding, and he was going to build Disney World, which is what he did. But unfortunately, Walt had been a heavy smoker his whole life, and he smoked a pipe as a kid, and then he carried that bad habit on all the way until he was old. So he was diagnosed with lung cancer. And then 15 days after his 65th birthday, he had passed away from a collapsed lung and lung failure. But thankfully, Walt's brother knew that Disneyland and Disney World were his joy and pride. So he ended up taking over Disney World and turning it into what Walt would have wanted. So what it is today wasn't Walt's idea technically, because Walt's brother had taken it over after he passed away, but he expanded it and turned it into what he wanted. And then now Disney is one of the largest companies in the world, producing billions of dollars in revenue from merchandise, sales, cartoons, movies, shows, and both the well-known theme parks we know today. And Walt's tradition will live on forever through him and everything that he had done for the company. Thank you. Bailey's like barking in the back.
did it in